Hi, I'm Emma. I'm a graphic designer living in Portland, and I thought I had a pretty normal relationship with my sister, Sarah. We weren't super close, but we weren't enemies either. At least that's what I believed, until 3 weeks before her wedding, when I found my wedding invitation in my mailbox with my name violently crossed out in red ink and uninvited, scrawled across it in Sarah's handwriting. Have you ever been accused by your family of something you absolutely didn't do? Something so ridiculous that you actually laughed when you first heard it? Because that's exactly what happened to me when Sarah called me that Tuesday evening. Her voice shaking with what I now realize was manufactured rage. "Emma, we need to talk," she said without even saying hello. "Jake and I have decided you can't come to the wedding." I was sitting at my kitchen table, editing photos from a client shoot, completely unprepared for what was about to hit me. "Wait, what? Sarah, what are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me. I've seen the way he looks at you. I've seen the way you look at him. This whole innocent little sister act isn't fooling anyone anymore." The words hit me like ice water. Jake, her fiancé of 2 years, was a nice guy. We'd probably exchanged maybe 50 words total in all the time they'd been together. Most of our interactions consisted of polite small talk at family gatherings and the occasional hey when he picked Sarah up from our parents' house. "Sarah, I honestly have no idea what you're talking about. Jake and I barely know each other." "Oh, please. At Mom's birthday last month? The way you two were laughing together by the dessert table? The way he kept finding excuses to talk to you? I'm not blind, Emma." I tried to remember Mom's birthday party. Jake had made some joke about the sugar-free cake tasting like cardboard, and yeah, I'd laughed. Because it was funny. And true. The cake had been terrible. That was one conversation about cake, Sarah, for like 2 minutes. It wasn't just that night. It's every family gathering. It's the way he asks about you when you're not there. It's the way his whole face lights up when someone mentions your name. I won't have my wedding day ruined because my own sister can't keep her hands off my fiancé. The accusation was so absurd, so completely disconnected from reality, that I actually started laughing, which was apparently the worst possible response. This isn't funny, Emma. This is my life, my future. And you're sitting there laughing about it? I'm laughing because this is insane, Sarah. I've never made a move on Jake. I've never even thought about Jake that way. He's your fiancé. He's going to be my brother-in-law. Well, maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to seduce him. The conversation deteriorated from there. Sarah hung up on me after informing me that not only was I uninvited from the wedding, but I was also being removed from the bridal party, which honestly came as news to me since I hadn't been asked to be in it in the first place. I was just supposed to be a regular guest, sitting in the third row with our Aunt Linda and Uncle Bob, eating chicken or fish and making small talk about the weather. I called my mom immediately, thinking surely this was some kind of misunderstanding that could be cleared up with a simple phone call. Mom would talk sense into Sarah, and we'd all laugh about this ridiculous mix-up later. I was wrong. "Emma, honey," Mom said, in that careful tone she used when she was trying not to take sides, but absolutely was taking sides. "Maybe it's best if you just give Sarah some space right now. Wedding planning is very stressful, and she's been so worried about everything being perfect." "Mom, she's accusing me of trying to steal her fiancé. That's not wedding stress, that's..." "I'm not saying she's right or wrong, sweetheart. I'm just saying that sometimes it's easier to avoid conflict than to create more drama." Drama. There was that word. In my family, anytime someone stood up for themselves or questioned the narrative, it was labeled as creating drama. It was a neat little trick that shut down any attempt at defending yourself. So I'm just supposed to accept being banned from my own sister's wedding based on absolutely nothing? It's just one day, Emma. Sarah will calm down after the wedding and everything will go back to normal. But I knew it wouldn't go back to normal. How could it? Once accusations like this were made, once that poison was in the water, it didn't just evaporate. It lingered, creating doubt and suspicion where none had existed before. I tried calling my dad, thinking maybe he'd be more reasonable. Dad had always been the logical one in the family, the one who looked at situations objectively. Emma, I don't know what to tell you, he said, and I could hear the exhaustion in his voice. Your sister is convinced something is going on. She showed me text messages. What text messages? Between you and Jake. She says they prove you've been flirting with him. My mind raced, trying to think of any text messages I'd exchanged with Jake. The only ones I could remember were from a few months ago when Sarah had been in the hospital with food poisoning, and Jake had texted the family group chat with updates. I'd responded with things like, thanks for letting us know and hope she feels better soon. Dad, I've never texted Jake privately. The only messages we've exchanged were in the family group chat. Well, she seems pretty convinced. Can you ask her to show you these supposed text messages? There was a long pause. Emma, I think it's best if everyone just takes a step back and lets things cool down. Translation. No, he wouldn't ask to see the evidence because deep down, he probably knew it didn't exist. But it was easier to sacrifice me to keep the peace than to challenge Sarah's version of events. That's when I realized I was being gaslit by my entire family. They were so desperate to avoid confrontation with Sarah, who had always been the dramatic one, the one who threw tantrums when she didn't get her way, that they were willing to let me be the scapegoat. It was easier to make me disappear than to deal with Sarah's accusations directly. The next few days were surreal. I kept expecting someone to call and say it had all been a mistake, that Sarah had come to her senses. Instead, I got radio silence. No one called. No one texted. It was like I'd been erased from the family. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the growing hurt and anger. But every time I thought about sitting at home while my sister got married, while my entire family celebrated without me, the injustice of it burned in my chest like acid. The worst part wasn't even being uninvited. It was the realization that my family was so willing to believe the worst about me without any evidence, without even giving me a chance to defend myself properly. It was the understanding that in their eyes, I was dispensable. But then something happened that I wasn't expecting. Something that would change everything. Jake called me. It was a Thursday evening, exactly 1 week after Sarah had uninvited me. I was sitting on my couch in my pajamas, eating takeout Thai food and watching Netflix, trying to pretend my life wasn't falling apart. When I saw his name on my phone screen, my first instinct was to ignore the call. The last thing I needed was more drama, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello? Emma? It's Jake. I need to talk to you about something. His voice sounded strange, strained, like he'd been thinking about this call for a long time. Jake, I don't think we should be talking. Sarah already thinks. That's what I need to talk to you about. Emma, what exactly did Sarah tell you about why you're not invited to the wedding? I hesitated. Part of me wanted to hang up to avoid getting dragged deeper into this mess. But a bigger part of me was curious about what Jake knew, what he'd been told. She said you have feelings for me, that we've been flirting, that I'm trying to steal you from her. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Emma, Jake said finally, his voice careful and measured, I need you to know that I have never, not once, expressed any romantic interest in you to Sarah or to anyone else. I have never told her that I have feelings for you. I have never complained about you or said anything that could be interpreted as what she's claiming. My heart started beating faster. Then why does she think? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. But Emma, the things she's been saying about you, the way she's been talking about this whole situation, it's not adding up. And some of the things she claims you said or did, I know for a fact didn't happen because I was there. Like what? She told me that at your mom's birthday party, you cornered me by the dessert table and told me I was too good for her. She said you put your hand on my arm and leaned in close when you said it. I felt like the ground was shifting beneath me. Jake, I never said anything remotely like that. We talked about the cake. You said it tasted like cardboard. I agreed, and we both laughed. That was it. I never touched your arm. I never said anything about Sarah. I know. That's exactly what I remember too. But when I told Sarah that's not what happened, she got angry and said I was lying to protect you. The pieces were starting to come together, and the picture they formed was disturbing. Sarah hadn't just misinterpreted innocent interactions. She had completely fabricated conversations and scenarios that never happened. Jake, has she done this before? Made up stories about things that didn't happen? Another long pause. Emma, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but yes, there have been other incidents. With my female coworkers, with our mutual friends. Sarah gets these ideas in her head about women being interested in me, and no amount of reassurance seems to help. Why are you telling me this? Because what she's doing to you isn't fair. You don't deserve to be cut out of your family over something that exists only in her imagination. And because he paused and I could hear him taking a deep breath. Because I'm starting to realize that if Sarah can do this to her own sister, what does that say about who she really is? The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. Jake, you're getting married in 2 weeks. I know, believe me, I know, but Emma, I can't stop thinking about this. If she can convince herself that you're trying to steal me based on absolutely nothing, if she can cut you out of her life that easily, what happens the next time she decides someone is a threat? What happens when it's someone I work with, or a friend, or... God, what if we have daughters someday? What if she sees one of them as competition? I felt a chill run down my spine. Jake was asking questions that I'd been afraid to ask myself. Questions about what this behavior meant, where it came from, and what it said about my sister's character. I don't know what to tell you, Jake. This is your decision to make. I know, but I needed you to know that I don't believe what she's saying about you, and I needed you to know that none of this is your fault. After Jake hung up, I sat in my living room for a long time, staring at the wall. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, someone had validated my reality. Someone had confirmed that I wasn't crazy, that the accusations against me were baseless. But Jake's call also made me realize something else. This wasn't really about me at all. I was just the latest target in a pattern of behavior that went much deeper than sibling rivalry or wedding stress. I thought about all the times Sarah had accused friends of being jealous of her, all the relationships that had ended because she'd decided someone was toxic or fake. I thought about her college roommate who'd moved out mid-semester because Sarah was convinced she was stealing her clothes. I thought about her former best friend Maya, who'd been abruptly cut off because Sarah decided Maya was secretly competing with her. At the time, I'd believed Sarah's version of events. Maya was jealous. The roommate was weird. The coworkers were threatened by Sarah's success. But now I was seeing a different pattern. Now I was wondering if Sarah was the common denominator in all these failed relationships. I went to my bedroom and pulled out a box from under my bed. It was full of old photos and mementos from our childhood. I found what I was looking for near the bottom, my old diary from high school. I flipped through the pages, looking for entries about Sarah. What I found made my stomach turn. Sarah told Mom that I cheated on my history test. I didn't, but no one believes me. Sarah said I was the one who broke Mom's vase, but it was her. She watched me get grounded for a week and didn't say anything. Sarah told everyone at school that I had a crush on her boyfriend, Tyler. Now everyone thinks I'm pathetic. Tyler won't even look at me. Entry after entry, year after year, the same pattern. Sarah would accuse me of something I didn't do, and everyone would believe her because she was older, because she was more confident, because she cried prettier tears when she was upset. How had I forgotten about all of this? How had I convinced myself that we'd had a normal sibling relationship? I kept reading, and the entries got darker. Sarah threw away my college acceptance letter. She said she was trying to help me clean my room, but I saw her hiding the envelope. When I confronted her, she said I was paranoid and jealous of her success. Sarah told Mom and Dad that I was doing drugs because she found rolling papers in my backpack. They were hers. She planted them there after I got a higher SAT score than her. Sarah convinced Mom that I was bulimic and needed therapy because she said she heard me throwing up after meals. I wasn't bulimic. I had food poisoning. But I spent 6 months in therapy anyway because no one believed me when I said I was fine. I closed the diary and sat on my bed, overwhelmed by the weight of these memories I'd somehow suppressed. This wasn't wedding stress or pre-marriage jitters. This was a pattern of manipulation and gaslighting that had been going on for decades. Sarah had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, and I had been her scapegoat, the convenient target for her insecurities and need for control. Every time something went wrong in Sarah's life, every time she felt threatened or insecure, she found a way to make it my fault. But this time was different. This time she'd gone too far. This time she'd involved an innocent man who was supposed to be her life partner, and she was willing to destroy her relationship with her own sister to maintain her delusion. I thought about Jake's question. What if they had daughters someday? What if Sarah saw her own child as competition? That's when I realized that this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about breaking a cycle of manipulation and abuse that had been going on for far too long. This was about protecting Jake and any future children they might have from the same treatment I'd endured my entire life. I picked up my phone and started typing a text message to Jake, then deleted it. Then I started again and deleted it again. What could I say? How could I explain 20 plus years of psychological manipulation in a text message? But then I remembered something that might change everything. I still had the recording. 2 years ago at our cousin's wedding, Sarah had cornered me in the bathroom after a few too many glasses of wine. She'd been angry about something. I couldn't even remember what now. And she'd gone on a rant about how I was always trying to upstage her, how I was jealous of her relationship with Jake, how I was pathetic and desperate for male attention. At the time, I'd been so hurt and shocked by her words that I'd pulled out my phone and started recording, thinking I might need proof later if she denied saying those things. She'd been too drunk to notice. I'd forgotten about that recording until now. I found it in my phone's voice memos, filed under Sarah Wedding Rant. My hands were shaking as I pressed play. Sarah's voice, slurred but unmistakably venomous, filled my bedroom. You think you're so special, don't you, Emma, with your little art projects and your cute apartment? But you know what? Jake sees right through you. He told me how pathetic you are, how you always try too hard to get male attention. He said you're the kind of desperate girl who would throw herself at her own sister's boyfriend if you thought you could get away with it. He said he feels sorry for you because you're obviously so lonely and sad. The recording went on for another 10 minutes, with Sarah saying increasingly cruel things, many of them complete fabrications about conversations she claimed to have had with Jake about me. But the most damning part was what she said near the end. I know Jake doesn't actually think those things about you. I mean, he barely knows you exist. But it's so easy to plant ideas in people's heads, you know? A comment here, a suggestion there, and suddenly everyone sees what I want them to see. It's not lying exactly, it's just guiding the narrative. I sat there in stunned silence as the recording ended. Sarah had essentially confessed to deliberately manipulating people's perceptions of me. She'd admitted that Jake had never said any of the things she claimed he'd said. And she'd revealed that this was a calculated pattern of behavior, not just wedding stress or momentary jealousy. This was the evidence I needed. This was proof that everything Sarah had accused me of was a lie and that she'd been deliberately sabotaging my relationships and reputation for years. The question was, what was I going to do with it? I stared at my phone for what felt like hours, the weight of Sarah's recorded confession heavy in my hands. This wasn't just evidence of her lies about Jake and me. It was proof of a systematic pattern of manipulation that had shaped my entire relationship with my family. But having the truth and knowing what to do with it were two very different things. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. I called Jake. Emma, is everything okay? He sounded surprised to hear from me again so soon. Jake, I need to show you something. Can we meet somewhere? Somewhere private? There was a pause. Emma, I don't think Sarah would be comfortable with us meeting alone. Jake, after you hear what I have to show you, Sarah's comfort level is going to be the least of your concerns. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown, far from anywhere Sarah might accidentally run into us. When I arrived, Jake was already there, sitting in a corner booth looking nervous and conflicted. He looked like he hadn't slept much. Before I play this for you, I said, sliding into the seat across from him, I need you to understand that what you're about to hear was recorded 2 years ago. Sarah was drunk and angry, and she thought we were alone. I recorded it because I was so shocked by what she was saying that I knew no one would believe me without proof. Jake's expression grew serious. Emma, what are you talking about? Instead of explaining further, I placed my phone on the table between us and pressed play. As Sarah's voice filled the space between us, I watched Jake's face transform. First confusion, then shock, then something that looked like horror as he realized what he was hearing. When Sarah's voice on the recording said, I know Jake doesn't actually think those things about you. I mean, he barely knows you exist. But it's so easy to plant ideas in people's heads, Jake went completely pale. Turn it off, he said quietly. I stopped the recording. We sat in silence for a long moment. That's not all of it, I said gently. There's more. About how she manipulates situations, plants ideas, guides narratives. Jake put his head in his hands. Oh my God. Emma, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was capable of this level of manipulation. I was going to say cruelty, but yes. Manipulation. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with something that looked like grief. How long has she been doing this to you? I pulled out my old diary and showed him some of the entries I'd found. Jake read them in silence, his expression growing darker with each page. This goes back to high school, he said finally. Earlier. This is just what I wrote down. There were other incidents, other accusations that I didn't document because I was a kid and I didn't understand what was happening. Jake closed the diary and leaned back in his chair. Emma, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Has Sarah ever done anything like this to other people? Other women in my life? I thought about his question carefully. Jake, what have you noticed? What made you ask that? My coworker, Lisa. 6 months ago, Sarah became convinced that Lisa was interested in me. She started pointing out every interaction we had, analyzing every email Lisa sent me, reading romantic intent into completely professional conversations. She wanted me to request a transfer to a different department. Did you? No, but Lisa ended up leaving the company anyway. She said the work environment had become uncomfortable. Jake's voice was quiet. I thought it was a coincidence. What about your friend Marcus's girlfriend? The one Sarah said was inappropriate with you at the housewarming party? Jake's eyes widened. How did you know about that? Sarah told me. She said Kelly was all over you, that she was being disrespectful to Marcus and making you uncomfortable. Emma, Kelly barely spoke to me that night. We had maybe one conversation about her new job, with Marcus standing right there. Sarah insisted that Kelly was flirting with me, that she was touching my arm and standing too close. But none of that happened. What did you do? I told Marcus that I thought it might be better if we didn't hang out as couples anymore. I said Sarah felt uncomfortable around Kelly, and I wanted to respect that. Jake's voice was full of regret. Marcus and I barely talk anymore. Their relationship ended 3 months later. The pattern was becoming clear, and it was worse than I'd imagined. Sarah wasn't just targeting me, she was systematically isolating Jake from any woman she perceived as a threat, real or imagined. Jake, there's something else you need to know. My friend Rachel from college, Sarah convinced my entire family that Rachel was a bad influence on me, that she was jealous of our family's closeness and was trying to turn me against them. Rachel and I had been best friends for 4 years. What happened? I chose my family over my friendship. I stopped returning Rachel's calls, stopped inviting her to family events. She tried to reach out for months, asking what she'd done wrong, but Sarah had convinced me that Rachel's hurt feelings were just proof of her manipulation. I felt tears starting to form. I lost my best friend because I believed my sister's lies. Jake was quiet for a long time, processing everything I'd told him. Finally, he spoke. Emma, I think I need to talk to some other people. My friend Dave, and whose wife Sarah said was clearly jealous of our relationship. My sister Melissa, who Sarah insisted was trying to cause problems between us. I need to find out if there's a pattern here. What will you do if there is? Jake looked me straight in the eye. I can't marry someone who systematically destroys other people's relationships out of jealousy and insecurity. I can't build a life with someone who would manipulate me into isolating myself from friends and family. And I definitely can't have children with someone who might see our own daughters as competition someday. Over the next few days, Jake did exactly what he said he would. He reached out to friends, coworkers, and family members, asking careful questions about their interactions with Sarah and their perceptions of various conflicts that had arisen over the past 2 years. What he discovered was devastating. Dave's wife hadn't been jealous of Jake and Sarah's relationship. She'd been concerned about Sarah's possessive behavior and had tried to gently suggest that Jake might want to maintain some independence. Sarah had spun this into a narrative about jealousy and manipulation. Melissa hadn't been trying to cause problems. She'd been trying to maintain a relationship with her brother, despite Sarah's increasing demands that Jake choose between his family and his fiancé. Lisa hadn't left her job because of an uncomfortable work environment. She'd left because Sarah had started showing up at the office unannounced, claiming she was surprising Jake with lunch, but actually interrogating Lisa about her interactions with him. The evidence was overwhelming. Sarah had been systematically manipulating Jake's perception of reality for their entire relationship, isolating him from friends and family, and creating a narrative where any woman who spoke to him was either jealous of her or trying to steal him away. Meanwhile, I was dealing with my own reckoning. I'd called Rachel, my college friend, and after a long, tearful conversation, I'd learned the full extent of what Sarah had done to our friendship. "Emma, your sister called me a week before you stopped talking to me," Rachel said. "She told me that you'd been saying I was clingy and desperate, that you were tired of me always needing emotional support, and that you wanted space but were too nice to tell me yourself." Rachel, I never said any of those things. I loved our friendship. I was devastated when we grew apart. I know that now, but at the time, it explained why you'd been acting distant. Sarah said she was trying to help both of us by being honest about what you'd told her. She said you'd asked her to talk to me because you didn't want to hurt my feelings directly. The cruelty of it took my breath away. Sarah hadn't just destroyed my friendship with Rachel. She'd made Rachel believe that I had wanted her out of my life, that our entire friendship had been a burden to me. "There's more," Rachel said quietly. "Your sister also told me that you'd been struggling with jealousy about my relationship with Tom, that you'd confided in her about feeling left out and resentful. She said you needed time to work through those feelings, and that the best thing I could do for you was give you space. Rachel, I was happy for you and Tom. I never felt jealous or resentful." "I know, but Sarah was very convincing. She seemed genuinely concerned about you, and everything she said sounded just plausible enough to make sense of the way you'd been pulling away." I hung up the phone feeling sick. Sarah hadn't just manipulated me, she'd manipulated Rachel too, making both of us believe the other person wanted the friendship to end. It was psychological warfare disguised as concern. That evening, Jake called me. "Emma, I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about this situation nonstop, and I've made a decision." My heart started racing. "What kind of decision?" "I can't go through with the wedding." The words hung in the air between us. Even though I'd suspected this might happen, hearing it stated so definitively was shocking. "Jake, are you sure? This is a huge decision." "I'm sure. Emma, what Sarah has done to you, to me, to our friends and family, it's not just wrong, it's abusive. She's been gaslighting all of us for years, making us question our own perceptions and experiences. I can't commit my life to someone who operates this way." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to tell her tonight. I'm going to explain what I've discovered and give her a chance to respond." "But Emma, my mind is made up. Even if she apologizes, even if she promises to change, I can't trust someone who has been this systematically deceptive." "Where will you tell her?" "At her apartment. I think this conversation needs to happen privately, at least initially." "Jake, be careful. When people like Sarah are confronted with evidence of their behavior, they don't usually respond well." "I know, but I owe her honesty, just like I owed it to you to investigate her claims before accepting them as truth." After Jake hung up, I sat in my apartment feeling a strange mixture of vindication and sadness. I was relieved that the truth was finally coming out, that Jake was seeing Sarah for who she really was. But I was also grieving the loss of the sister I'd thought I had, the family relationships that had been built on lies and manipulation. An hour later, my phone rang. It was my mom. Emma, what have you done? Her voice was shaking with anger. Mom, what are you talking about? Jake just left Sarah's apartment. The wedding is off. Sarah is hysterical, and she says it's all your fault that you've been poisoning Jake against her. I took a deep breath. Mom, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without interrupting. I told her everything about the recording, about the diary entries, about Jake's investigation into Sarah's behavior patterns. I explained how Sarah had been manipulating all of us for years, creating conflicts and destroying relationships through lies and manufactured drama. When I finished, there was a long silence. Emma, these are very serious accusations you're making against your sister. They're not accusations, Mom, they're facts. I have evidence. Jake has evidence. Other people have corroborated the pattern of behavior. Sarah says you've manipulated Jake into believing lies about her. She says you've been working to destroy her relationship from the beginning. Mom, did you listen to anything I just told you? Sarah has been doing this for years. To me, to Jake's friends, to our family. This isn't about one relationship. This is about a pattern of psychological manipulation. Your sister is devastated, Emma. Her wedding is ruined, her relationship is over, and you seem almost happy about it. The accusation hit me like a slap. Mom, I'm not happy about this. I'm sad that my sister is someone I never really knew. I'm sad that our entire family dynamic has been built on her lies. I'm sad that it took this long for the truth to come out. Well, I hope you're satisfied. You've gotten what you wanted. She hung up on me. 20 minutes later, Sarah called. You manipulative bitch. Her voice was cold, deadly calm. You've been planning this from the beginning, haven't you? Sarah, don't you dare try to deny it. You've been jealous of me your entire life, and you finally found a way to destroy my happiness. Sarah, Jake made his own decision based on evidence of your behavior. I didn't manipulate him into anything. Evidence? You mean that recording you made when I was drunk? That's not evidence, that's entrapment. Sarah, you admitted on that recording that you've been lying about Jake's feelings toward me. You admitted that you manipulate people's perceptions. I was drunk. People say things they don't mean when they're drunk. So you're saying you didn't mean it when you said it was easy to plant ideas in people's heads? You didn't mean it when you said you guide narratives? There was a pause. When Sarah spoke again, her voice had changed. The cold anger was gone, replaced by something that sounded almost like pleading. Emma, please. You have to call Jake and tell him you lied. Tell him you made up those stories about me. Tell him you doctored that recording. I'm not going to lie for you, Sarah. Not anymore. Fine. Then you've lost a sister. Because after what you've done to me, after the way you've destroyed my life, I never want to see you again. Sarah, I didn't destroy your life. Your own behavior did that. Go to hell, Emma, and when you're sitting alone in your pathetic little apartment, wondering why no one wants to be around you, remember that you brought this on yourself. She hung up. I sat there holding my phone, feeling strangely empty. I'd expected to feel triumphant, vindicated, relieved. Instead, I felt like I was mourning the death of someone who had never really existed, the sister I thought I had, the family I thought was normal. But as the days passed, something unexpected began to happen. People started reaching out to me. Rachel called to thank me for finally telling her the truth about what had happened to our friendship. She said she'd always wondered if there was more to the story, and that she was grateful to finally have closure. Jake's sister Melissa called to apologize for the way she'd been treated over the past 2 years. She said Jake had explained everything, and that she finally understood why her relationship with her brother had become so strained. Even some of my extended family members reached out, admitting they'd always felt like there was something off about the way conflicts seemed to follow Sarah wherever she went. Most surprisingly, my dad called. Emma, I owe you an apology, he said. I've been thinking about everything you told your mother, and I've been remembering things. Patterns I should have noticed years ago. Dad, you don't have to. Yes, I do. I let your sister manipulate our family dynamics for years because it was easier than dealing with the drama that came with questioning her version of events. I failed you as a father. And I'm sorry. What changed your mind? I asked your mother to play me that recording you mentioned, the one of Sarah at your cousin's wedding. Emma, the things she said about you? No sister should ever say those things about another sister. And the way she talked about manipulating people's perceptions, it explained so many things that never made sense before. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe freely. Dad, what about Mom? Is she still convinced this is all my fault? Your mother is having a hard time accepting that Sarah isn't who we thought she was. She's invested so much in the idea of our family being perfect that admitting Sarah has problems feels like admitting failure as a parent. But what Sarah did isn't Mom's fault. Mental health issues, personality disorders, those things aren't caused by bad parenting. I know that, and you know that. But your mother needs time to process this. Give her space, and hopefully she'll come around. The wedding date came and went. I spent that Saturday working in my garden, trying to focus on creating something beautiful rather than dwelling on everything that had been destroyed. Around what would have been the time for the ceremony, Jake texted me. Thank you for having the courage to tell the truth. I know this wasn't easy for you. I texted back, how are you doing? Better than I expected. It's hard, but I feel like I can breathe again. Like I'm remembering who I was before I started second-guessing every interaction I had with other people. That's what gaslighting does. It makes you doubt your own reality. I've been thinking about what you said about breaking cycles of manipulation. I think I need to talk to someone. A therapist. I want to understand how I got so deep into this situation without recognizing what was happening. That sounds like a really healthy decision. Emma, I know this is a weird thing to say given everything that's happened, but I'm glad I got to know who you really are. You're nothing like the person Sarah described to me. Jake, you're going to be okay. You're smart and kind, and now that you know what to look for, you won't let someone manipulate you like this again. 6 months later, I got a call from an unknown number. Emma, this is Dr. Martinez. I'm a therapist, and I've been working with your sister, Sarah. My heart started racing. Is everything okay? Sarah is fine physically, but she's asked me to call you because she wants to make amends. She's been in intensive therapy since her engagement ended, and she's ready to take responsibility for her behavior. I don't know if I'm ready for that conversation. I understand. Sarah knows she has a lot of work to do to rebuild trust with you and your family. She's not asking for forgiveness or for things to go back to the way they were. She just wants the opportunity to apologize and to acknowledge the harm she's caused. What's her diagnosis? I can't share specific details without Sarah's permission, but I can tell you that she's been diagnosed with a personality disorder that explains many of the behaviors you've experienced. She's committed to treatment and to changing these patterns. Dr. Martinez, I appreciate you calling, but I need time to think about this. Of course, Sarah understands that any reconciliation will have to happen on your terms, if it happens at all. After I hung up, I sat in my living room thinking about the sister I'd grown up with, the sister I'd lost, and the possibility of meeting the sister Sarah might become, with treatment and hard work. I thought about the bridesmaid dress that was still hanging in my closet, tag still attached. I'd planned to return it, but somehow I'd never gotten around to it. Maybe it was time to donate it to charity, to let someone else wear it to celebrate a love that was real and healthy. I thought about Jake, who had started dating someone new, a woman he'd met in therapy group, someone who understood the importance of healthy communication and boundaries. I thought about my relationship with my parents, which was slowly healing as we all learned to recognize manipulation tactics and communicate more directly with each other. Most of all, I thought about myself and how different I felt now that I was no longer walking on eggshells, no longer second-guessing my own perceptions, no longer accepting responsibility for other people's emotional reactions. I picked up my phone and called Rachel. Hey, want to get coffee this weekend? I have some things I want to tell you about what's been happening with my family. I'd love that, Rachel said. Emma, I'm really glad we found our way back to each other. Me too, I said. And for the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy. The truth had been painful, devastating even, but it had also been liberating. I was no longer the scapegoat, the problem child, the sister who caused drama. I was Emma, graphic designer, loyal friend, survivor of psychological manipulation, and finally, someone who knew her own worth, and that was more than enough.